happy Friday evening at 7 p.m. Welcome to my live broadcast for this week. And it is now Saturday morning. It is 9 a.m. Saturday morning, and I am still in Melbourne, Australia, where I've had about 3 hours worth of sleep this evening. I did a webinar on jumpstarting your calendar year-end fundraising, and I've been engaging in getting re-engaged with the Network for Good coaching program. And so I have been picking up some coaching clients through them. But today I am here because I am taking your questions and answers. This group is growing exponentially. I don't know how word is getting out or what's happening, but we are almost close to, I think it's 280 members now. And so it's just growing. We had 11 new members earlier this week, and now we're up to another 7 new members by weekend. So I want to welcome all of you who are coming into this group and sharing this group and participating. So this is my kind of monthly, every end of the month on a Saturday, my time, your time is Friday evening, I do a kind of coach chat, and this is the kind of coach chat, and so I offer you to submit your questions, and hopefully we can come up with some answers, either myself or other folks in the group. Now, we have had a very active member within the last month, and that is C. Kate Francis, and I hope I'm saying C. Kate's name correctly, but C. Kate actually typed in some great questions in the Facebook group well, it was my last night, it was probably your daytime. And those questions are basically, there's 2 questions that C. Kate had, and I hope that C. Kate is joining us today. And I don't see him or her on, so I'm going to wait a little bit and see if they join us, so that we can get their questions answered. He or she is in Africa, and so they would need to be tuning in at 2 a.m. their time. So maybe C. Kate is taking a little nap. But I did a webinar this week on how to craft a powerful case for support. And it's interesting because we're working with one of our clients who has been working on a case for support for a number of weeks or maybe even months at this point. And they did a complete revamp of it. And so I was actually reviewing and editing their case for support as well, which is now ready for approval. Exciting. So cases for support, a couple of things when I do this webinar on how to write a winning or powerful case for support. I spend a lot of time talking about the definitions of a case for support. There are a number of jargony-ish kinds of terms that are associated with a case for support, and once you kind of understand what those terms are, then it all seems to make much more sense. So there's an internal case for support, which is basically that internal document that is kind of the compendium of all that is about your organization. And so an internal case for support can sometimes be 20, 25 pages long, but it includes everything that could possibly be about who you are. So for instance, you will find things such as your governance, what your board composition or your board of directors looks like, what their term limits are, your staffing. You will obviously find information in your internal case for support regarding service delivery, how you provide services, not just what services you provide, but how accessible they are, what are your hours, where you're located. And then you'll also find a component on mission, vision, and values, as well as goals and objectives, which naturally form from the strategic plans, goals, and objectives. In addition to that, you will have history. And I always say that history people like to put history front and center. However, history usually takes a back burner because that's not why donors are choosing to invest in your organization. they're choosing to invest for the difference that they are going to make in the upcoming through giving their gift. In addition to that, the internal case for support has a strong financial component that aligns with exactly why you need contributed income. So how you're spending your money should really match what you're saying why you need money, which, believe it or not, has been illustrated in some cases for support that I've worked on a professional level for the Sisters of Mercy. They thought they were they were raising money for ministry and support of the sisters' ministries, when in fact most of what they were spending their monies on was the care and retirement of the sisters. So that became our case for support. The case for support, the internal case document, should be reviewed at least annually. Yes, annually, your case for support. Things such as financials are going to change. In your internal case for support, you will also have client testimonials as well as a snapshot of key accomplishments. And so you want to go through your case for support at least yearly to update things like your financials, add new testimonials, add in addition to that, add new accomplishments, as well as go through it and make sure your programmings and services are still the same. In addition to that, I highly recommend that you do not share this with many folks in your organization. The internal case for support is not a document for donors at all. It is the compendium, the Google, I say the encyclopedia of who you are, but it is in fact the Google now, if I want to make the equivalent of that, for who you are. Now you go from a internal case to a case statement or a case summary, and that's more of the document that you would take to your board of directors. It's the summary of what you find within your internal document, and then from there you have your case expression, which is essentially your collateral materials and how the approved case statement is expressed visually, graphically, in brochures, in PowerPoints, on social media, in your grant application, whatever that is. The case for support provides that consistent messaging that you use throughout all of your platforms. So in addition to that, I also use what's called a marketing brief concept. This was coined by Tom Ahern. Many of you who have heard of Tom Ahern. If you have not, I suggest you Google him and get one of his great books. I think one of them is called Seeing Through a Donor's Eyes, which talks a lot about cases for support. And so in that, he talks about, he comes from the marketing world, and in the marketing world, they use marketing briefs to kind of outline the concept of what the case for support would be to gain approval. No other reason to develop a marketing brief concept other than gaining approval. So you would structure this out into a no more than 2-page document that outlines your case for support. It's a skeleton of your case for support. Before you actually go ahead and create these documents, you want to make sure that you are on track with your messaging. So you would take that marketing brief concept to your board meeting, share it with your board with the express ideal of getting their buy-in and approval of moving forward with designing your case for support. Now, if any of you out there would like to see samples of an internal case for support, as well as a case statement, case summary, and a marketing brief concept, all you have to do is private message me. But I want to move on to CK's questions because there's some really great ones here, and I don't have my glasses. They are now packed in my bag. But the first question is, and I'm going to look at it, it says, I have 2 questions to discuss that puzzle me. The first question is, I'm going to bring my MacBook over here closer. One is, our new nonprofit, Change Africa for Good, congratulations, want to deploy email marketing and running Facebook ads to drive traffic to the donate button of our website, but I'm not sure if this is a worthwhile investment. Is this an online fundraising strategies other nonprofits have used before and worked? So great question. I will share my experiences with what has been happening from my observations and my meetings with other fundraisers down here in Australia. And so I met with someone this week And we had coffee, and she shared with me she's a brand new nonprofit and has no donor base at all. And in Australia here, digital strategies and techniques for donor acquisition are very large, very impressive. And so what she is doing is, if you know Facebook algorithms, you know Facebook changes its algorithms, and it is no longer making posts. I mean, Facebook wants to make money. So the issue is that the algorithms are changing, so there's no guarantee that you're even seeing this live right now if Facebook doesn't think that it's something that you're going to be interested in. So while you may have thought, geez, I'll tune into this, you may have forgotten, and Facebook certainly may not be showing it to you right now. So with that in mind, she designed so the Facebook idea is that people go to Facebook to build relationships online. They do not go to Facebook to decide to donate to your cause. They go there to share information about themselves, to connect with others, to get great stories. That's what Facebook is about. So you really need to take people from Facebook and drive them to your website. So Facebook targeted ads are very inexpensive and a great way to use for donor acquisition purposes. So what a lot of these groups are doing is that they're doing targeted digital acquisition. So they may have a pop-up on their website that will provide a petition, although they're saying here that petitions are getting a little bit old, providing petitions or a survey of sorts, or pop-ups that just are a call to action to donate. And so what they're doing is people will fill the survey out and they'll capture their contact information. Now it gets even more complex, because sometimes if someone fills a survey out one way, let's say they're a dog lover and they go down that track, then they get put into what is called a donor journey here. Once they're put into that donor journey, which is a series of engagement touch points, almost like cultivation in real life, they may be shared information about, a dog this, or dog leashes, or dog food, or whatever it may be, a dog's up for adoption, or whatever that is, and then the cat stream is over here, and then eventually they are cultivated in that way, and then an ask is made. So, CK, yes, very good means. I'm trying to work with some of my clients here to get the understanding of, Facebook is great, but you just can't spray, splash and spray, as I say, by putting social posts up anymore. Because the algorithms of Facebook doesn't necessarily guarantee that even, 1% of your audience is going to be seeing what you're putting up there. And I don't know the actual statistic on that, but that's roughly around, it could be very, very hit or miss. So targeted Facebook ads is a way to actually drive traffic out of Facebook to your website to some kind of engagement tool, whether that's a direct donate button or some download a piece of music, or take a survey or whatever that may be, so that you can start to collect their email addresses. If you are in need of someone who does targeted Facebook ads, of course, I have someone who does them for me, so I can certainly make those connections for you. But a great way to do donor acquisition, and I'm trying to work with some of my clients on targeted Facebook ads, driving them to the website to capture that information. Second question in the Facebook group today. For a startup, recruiting board members requires time and budget, especially if we are looking for motivated board members who can fundraise. In most cases, these are influencers who may not have time for meetings. However, it's easy to get board members who can fundraise but are technically smart in respective fields your nonprofit may want. The question goes on to say, in this regard, I would choose bringing technical people on board who will not fundraise and focus on influence marketing for fundraisers. Is this a crazy approach? Well, board governance, board development, very important topics. And I'm glad, CK, that you're actually thinking about the importance of your board of directors and their composition as a startup organization. Because what I find far too often is that many of these smaller organizations are not focusing on the structure and composition of their board when they should be. Because ultimately what impacts how well fundraising does in your organization is much more than just fundraising. It's board, it's staff, it's leadership, it's all of those things. So the question is, you really have to sit down and do a board composition analysis. Well, number one, you have to have a strategic plan and really know where your organization is headed in terms of its vision. Once you know where you're headed and what your aims are, then you really need to sit down and say, okay, what are the skills, experience, and networks that we need on our board and in our organization to begin to move the organization forward into this vision. And so you'll brainstorm a list of possible experiences and skills and networks that are needed. And then what you will do is you'll take a composition analysis tool. And when you have this composition analysis tool, what you will do is survey your current board to determine exactly what skills, experiences, and networks you have available within your current board. Now, I have a composition matrix tool that I've given out in the past on these Facebook Lives, but if you just private message me, I'll make sure that you get a sample board composition matrix tool. So once you have determined the skill sets that you need for to move your board into its current vision, and then you kind of do this composition analysis of your current board to determine what skill sets that you currently have, not just skills, but experience and networks, then you will know what gaps you have on your board of directors. And what I highly recommend is that you do not do the warm body approach to board development, that you then take what your gaps are and identify and brainstorm potential people within your community who can fill those gaps. Now, it may not necessarily be just fundraising and networkers and people of influence who you have identified, what skill sets you have identified. So yeah, right, your board may not be all inclusive of people who have networks. Maybe you need an attorney on board. Maybe you need a financial planner or a financial accountant, a CPA. Those may be some of the skill sets that you need to move your organization forward. But the most important thing is that you actively brainstorm those skill sets, who in your community may have those skill sets, and actually go out and recruit them. And I say recruitment is about a peer-to-peer model. So once you recruit your board chair, then your board chair should be out there actually working with you to recruit these folks to be on your board of directors. So we tackled 2 questions from our group today. We talked about targeted Facebook marketing ads, and I say amen. If anybody wants to talk strategy around what I see happening down here in Australia, I will share a lot of the case studies that I've heard to do donor acquisition and what they're calling these donor journeys. And then the second question we had was around board composition and board development. And the important thing around board composition and development is, number one, having a vision for your organization, identifying the skill sets, experience, and diversity that's needed and networks needed to move your organization closer to its vision, do a composition analysis of your current board members, determine the gaps in skills, experience, and networks, and then proactively brainstorm a list and go out and recruit those particular board members. So that's a little bit on board governance. We talked a little bit about targeted Facebook marketing ads to drive people to acquire new donors. Are there any, I see some folks on the Facebook Live now. Are there any questions? This is your time. So we had some really great questions submitted in the Facebook group today. Do you have any questions? If you do, just type them into the comments box and I will be sure to answer them. This is kind of like your coach chat for the month. So use this as a resource to bring any of your pressing fundraising questions to me. We also talked about cases for support and the differences between what an internal case for support is, what a case statement is, what a marketing brief concept is, as well as a case expression. So if you missed that, that was earlier on in the live. But I am coming here from Melbourne, Australia. Again, we talked about targeted Facebook ads for donor acquisition. We talked about board composition and board development, as well as case for supports. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in now before this live broadcast ends, and I will be sure to do my best to answer them. Be coming live again next week with a new topic, but also for those of you who are up for a challenge, we are going to get you ready for your calendar year-end appeal. I am hosting a webinar in the month of September, the end of September 26th, on jumpstarting your calendar year-end efforts. That's going to include one-on-one coaching with me to develop your calendar year-end plan, as well as group coaching in the month of November to talk about how your calendar year-end appeal our campaign has been going, and then from there we are going to plan follow-up for each of your groups. So be sure to check that out. But before we do that, we need to assess you for success. So I'm going to be leading a 5-day challenge. I don't know if any of you, I've never done a Facebook fundraising challenge, and I don't know other consultants that do, but I love coaching. So I'm actually going to run this challenge, and what we're going to be looking at is what I call the 5 key factors of a healthy and effective development program. What are those factors? Well, number 1, overall growth in revenue. Number 2, donor acquisition. And today we talked about some targeted Facebook ads to boost donor acquisition. Number 3, donor retention. We know donor retention rates are hovering around 48% in the United States, and they're not that much better in Australia either. The number of gifts people are making to you, if they are 1 or fewer, that's bad. But the more gifts that folks are making means that they're more committed to your organization. And then the other is upgrades of gifts. We need to be acquiring that broad base, and then we need to be moving them up through donor upgrades. How many of us are focusing on that? And then from there we need to acquire, retain, move up, right? Build a base, retain them, and then move them up into the pipeline. And what I see far too not enough of is that actual donor upgrades. So moving donors from acquiring them, well, that's a big problem. Donor acquisition with most of my clients is a huge issue. We are not acquiring donors. I met with the Peter McMullen Cancer Foundation. I have a new friend there, and he was telling me that they are acquiring about 10,000 donors into monthly giving during particular campaigns. 10,000 donors directly into monthly giving, not one-time cash gifts, but monthly gifts. So donor acquisition, donor retention to retain them, donor upgrades to keep them moving up the gift pyramid and hopefully into a major gift program. So we are going to take you through each of those key metrics. You're going to have homework in the Facebook group that you're going to report on daily within that, and I'm going to hold you accountable so that at the end of the 5-day challenge, you are going to have assessed your organization in each of those key metrics and come out with a plan for what you hope your calendar year-end efforts are going to do to those key metrics. So join me. It's a free challenge. It'll be quick. May not be so easy. You're going to have some homework. But out of that challenge, you're going to be better positioned to actually run your calendar year efforts. I mean, what more could you want? Education plus coaching plus accountability plus an action plan. And it's free. So join me. I look forward to having you. I look forward to seeing you in the group next week. We had 11 new members earlier this week, and now we have 7 more. So please continue to share the love of this group with others. Invite them. It's a growing community, and I'm so glad that you all are a